On Story is brought to you in part by the Alice Clayburgh Reynolds Foundation, a Texas family providing innovative funding since 1979. On Story, presented by Austin Film Festival, a look inside the creative process from today's leading writers and directors. This week's On Story, acclaimed television writer and creator of All in the Family, Maude, and The Jeffersons, Norman Lear.
Somebody once said, Goethe, I think, at the moment of commitment, the entire universe conspires to assure your success.
In this episode, Norman Lear reminisces on the groundbreaking work of bringing All in the Family, Maude, and Mary Hartman to the small screen.
My thinking about wishing to do a situation comedy began this way. There seemed to be more excitement in what we were doing, the live television, up at 8, off at 9, and everything else, but for good reason now I wanted to do a situation comedy, and about the same time, I learned about this British show called Till Death Us Do Part. And it was a show about father and son fighting about everything politically and so forth. And my father used to call me the laziest white kid he ever met. And I would scream at him that he was putting down an entire race of people to call me lazy, and that's not what he was doing. He said, and you're the dumbest white kid I ever met. So there was something in common, enough for me to think, holy, how did I never think of that? Within a couple of weeks, I had written and I just found like 80-some pages of notes that added up to Justice for All. His name was R.T. Justice the first time out. Yeah. So I made the show, sold it to the idea to ABC. I made it in 1968 with Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton when a new president was appointed at CBS, Robert Wood, and he called and said, I want to put that show on the air.
Yeah.
And we wanted to change that to a pilot while we were working on it, but went with his promise to put it on the air. And we made it, while I was editing Cold Turkey. I made the pilot for CBS. I take credit for casting those 4 people in All in the Family, but can take no credit for what developed beyond that. The chemistry in every single direction, Archie to Edith, Edith to Archie, Archie to Michael, Mike to Gloria, this in every direction. It was glorious from the start and got more so with every episode.
No arguments, okay?
Who's arguing?
I don't think that's an answer.
Oh, this dingbat's going to start argument number 1.
Daddy and Mom, just settle down. Now let's just eat.
That was a gift from the gods.
Besides the groundbreaking nature of the show, the political nature of the show, the things that had never, ever been talked about on television, certainly in a sitcom format. Besides that, I think that the reason it's an enduring legacy for you is not those things, actually, even though those are certainly important, but obviously those will date. What doesn't date, and the reason that we watch the show and love the show, is because of the personal relationships and the believability of them as a family and as characters, because without that, we're not watching. We're not connecting to them as people. And that's, I think, your absolute greatest strength. And it came through in all the other shows that came after from you.
True of Raymond, too. Really, truly true of Raymond.
I'm only here because of you. We forget, because of the importance we place on All in the Family in the landscape, right, of all of television. We forget how funny the jokes were. I mean, this has nothing to do with politics or anything, or racial tension or anything. He says to Edith, "Don't mention his eye."
But just do this for me, huh? A favor. When Sammy Davis Jr. gets here, whatever else you blab about, don't say nothing about his eye, huh?
What eye?
Let me tell you, see, one of them is glass. You'll find out when he gets here which of them, see? But don't talk about it, all right? Huh? Will you remember that?
Yeah.
All right. Now, you got any fried chicken out in the kitchen? Because they like to snack on that.
But then the act break for Act 1 is, of course, Archie, in trying to endear himself to his celebrity guest, says, "Do you take cream or sugar in your eye?"
Here we are.
Ah, here.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Bunker.
Ah, thanks, Edith. No, that's all right. I can say, Mr. Davis, Edith, get out of here. Now, Mr. Davis, do you take cream and sugar in your eye?
That's one of the best laughs in the history of television, I think. So how did you, this is really just for my personal edification, how do you broach that subject with Sammy Davis Jr.? Like,
Sammy...
Mr. Davis, is it okay if we make fun of your fake eye?
Sammy Davis hounded me. We were good friends. And he wanted to be on that show. He just wanted to be on the show. And I would say, "Sammy, we don't have guest stars."
Right. That was the first celebrity guest star, right, on the show.
And the only.
The only.
Yeah. And I would say, I don't even know where they live. That was the conceit. You know, it was when people wanted to put beer in Archie's hands and everything. Yes. Well, if you can find them, they live in Queens somewhere. Yeah. And that was, so I kept saying that to Sammy. But he wanted so much, so earnestly wished to be on that show, that several weeks or episodes before, we had Archie refer to him driving a cab because he needed some money for something, extra money. So he drove a cab at night. And then after several weeks, the episode with Sammy Davis was about his having left a briefcase and had to come to the taxi driver's home because the driver brought it home, and that's how he got to Archie's place. And you know, I mean, the kiss. Sammy came up with the kiss. He did that.
Mr. Davis, this is an unexpected pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Can I get a picture, Mr. Davis?
Come on, Munson, no pictures.
Oh, no, this one is for me. Mr. Munson, would you stand over there? I want one picture taken with Archie Bunker, my friend, and me.
You want me?
Oh, yes. Now, on 3, okay? 1, 2, 3.
I'm reminded, speaking of Archie in the taxi cab, I'd like to tell you about another person who sat in the back of his cab, a woman who had a heart problem while she was in the cab, and Archie gave her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Later in the episode, she too came to the house to thank the man who saved her life.
Oh, well, wait a minute. The fare was only 8 1/4. I can't break that bill.
Oh, that's all for you. I insist.
Do you know that this is a 50?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I never say no to a lady.
I was telling your wife, Mr. Bunker, I'm no lady.
Ah. Well, listen, how you earn this 50 is no business of mine. I will just say thank you, miss, unless you girls like to be called Ms.
Why don't you call me Mr.?
So Archie had given mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to a guy who wished to be a woman. Edith, in her way, fell in love with this character. So the show saw the characters a couple of times. And then I wanted to do an episode in which Edith lost and then regained her faith. So the only way we could figure for her to lose her faith was to have that character destroyed on the street by people who just didn't want that character around, who were expressing that kind of hatred.
Hey, little girl, what will you like for Christmas?
I want Beverly to be alive.
Oh, Rita.
I can't understand it. I mean, everything was going so good for him, and then somebody had to kill him.
Yeah, just because he was different.
And we did that episode, and Edith could not believe in a God that could see that happen. She lost her faith. Now, we had that episode to write, or maybe it was even written, but we couldn't play that until we had her regain it. And couldn't figure out, it took weeks to think about what happens that makes her regain the faith, until somebody said, by the way, what happens to Archie when she loses her faith? And then we realized Archie falls to pieces. There is no Archie with all his bluster, because it depends on the strength of Edith, who needed her faith. And so if I were to be asked which episodes I favored the most, it would be those two episodes.
So now come the what got to be known as spin-offs, right? And spin-offs had existed before, but you went a little crazy with the spin-offs. I mean, the family begat Maude, which begat... I mean, it's like the Bible, which begat Good Times, right?
Yes.
Right.
The way Maude occurred was I wanted to bring somebody on board that could just whip him, you know. And as a member of the family I grew up in, I knew that old relatives that had been around a long time that had something they disliked you for. They, watching my family, extended family fight. And when somebody was insanely mad because 22 years after Gert was not invited to the wedding, right. They brought it up from the ground.
Right.
So I wanted we wrote a character that was Maude's cousin, that was Edith's cousin and best friend when they were girls, who disliked Archie when Edith was introduced him to her from the very beginning. So she had an old, ancient family grudge. And they always represented the heaviest for me. Edith, in the episode we did, wasn't well, and Maude came to help take care of her.
There's a person at the door. Maude!
Edith!
Wait a minute! Didn't you get my telegram telling you to stay the hell away from here?
Of course I got your telegram telling me to stay the hell away from here. Edith, honey, lamb, you can rest easy now. Maude is here.
And she whipped Archie.
It was awesome. There's rarely been a character on TV with the balls of Maude and the intelligence too. And
the show was on the air 3 hours earlier, obviously, in New York. And before the show was ending, as the credits were running, Fred Silverman was on a phone. There's a show in that woman.
Absolutely. And what topic did you do with her that had never been done on TV before?
Well, you're referring to the abortion episodes. But here's the thing
that for everyone and say, how dare you?
It's legal in New York now, isn't it?
Oh, of course it is, Walter. Mother, I don't understand your hesitancy. When they made it a law, you were for it.
Of course, I wasn't pregnant then.
Mother, it's ridiculous. My saying this to you, we're free. We finally have the right to decide what we can do with our own bodies.
All right, then will you please get yours into the kitchen?
When that show went on, we went through all the difficulty you might expect to get the show on the air. When that show went on the air, nothing happened. Nothing happened. I mean, there had to be some letters and so forth I'm overlooking, but there were always
reaction was they didn't
it was you know, everybody knew the problem existed. Everybody knew older women, you know, just nothing happened. But when the show went into reruns, what happened in October when it was on the air was quite different in May or June when the reruns came on, because they knew the show was coming on. They knew. And then they lay down in front of William Paley's car in New York. They lay down in front of my car in L.A. They were there with the banners and the, you know, and the mail. And they carried on.
When you started having these subjects and having Archie talk the way he talked, you weren't trying to make political statement. You wanted to talk the way people really talked in their homes, right? So when did it start to, when I would imagine you start getting negative reaction from the far right and the people you just mentioned, when does it occur to you, oh, I should start using my platform for these purposes?
Well, if a platform is a point of view, I guess it is. I didn't understand I was expressing a point of view because I was defending the comedy we were doing. My proof was we did all these shows in front of a live audience. So there were people like you sitting there, and there was a stage no further than this from them. Yep. And the actors were performing live, and if they laughed, we were successful, and if they didn't laugh, we weren't.
But the message is still...
But at some point, I realized that the shows that preceded us, the Beverly Hillbillies and the Green Acres and such that I mentioned earlier, if the biggest problems a family faced was the bosses coming to dinner and the roast is ruined, didn't that carry a message? Wall to wall, floor to ceiling, America had no problems. American families were not suffering with menopause or disease or breast cancer or being out of work, and wasn't that a message? Wall to wall, floor to ceiling. So then I accepted, okay, well, I'm 40, however many years I was old, and I'm a serious person. I have a point of view, and so do the people collaborating with me, who I always asked to read 2-3 newspapers a day, to pay a lot of attention to what was happening with their kids and their families, and bring all of that to work. And that's where you and I got our material.
Right.
What I loved most about Mary Hartman was it was the only show I can think of that I had anything to do with, that its mission, which was so clear in the very first episode, was as clear in the very last episodes.
Right.
In the very first episode, Mary Hartman is standing in her kitchen with a can of floor wax, and she thinks she sees a waxy yellow buildup, and the can promises that there can't be a waxy yellow buildup, and she knows the can is right because they sell millions of them.
There can't be a waxy yellow buildup. Read the can.
Mary, you're looking at a waxy yellow buildup.
No, I'm not. I am looking at a label that says that can't be.
Mary, I'm your sister, and I'm telling you, it's not a waxy buildup there. It's a waxy buildup there.
You know, these people, I mean, they turn out about 1 million cans a week. I mean, who am I supposed to listen to, you?
Waxy yellow buildup.
So she is a real American consumer.
Right.
And while this is going on, we hear sirens in the neighborhood in the background, siren after siren. And one of the most priceless people who was here yesterday and introduced me at another event here yesterday, Mary Kay Place, who played Loretta Haggard, came rushing in, her neighbor, and said, Mary, have you heard what's going on? Around the corner, a family of 5, their 8 goats and 2 chickens have been slaughtered.
You know that new family over there, the Lombardis? And I said, well, no, I hadn't met them yet. She says, well, you should have met them while you had the chance, because they're gone now. Somebody just shot them all.
Oh, my God. The whole family?
All 5 of them, plus 2 goats and 8 chickens.
I can't believe that. What kind of a madman would shoot 2 goats and 8 chickens? And the people, of course.
She was inured to slaughter. And it was terribly funny and meaningful at the same time. At the end of the Mary Hartman series, it was on 5 nights a week, for those of you who don't know. It was usually on at 11 o'clock at night.
Like a parody of a soap opera with no audience.
No audience. She was on the David Susskind show. David Susskind had a major talk show, like Johnny Carson, a lot more serious. And she was on because some publication picked her out as Mother of the Year or something. She was sitting being interviewed by 3 media faces, and they were asking her questions. And in 22 minutes and some seconds, she was driven insane.
I don't know. It's just a wonderful world, isn't it? It's just such a wonderful world. What a wonderful place we live in. What a wonderful world. I did bad. I did real bad. Are we still in the air now? Are we in the air? Could we go off the air now and go on the air tomorrow?
I mean, it's one of the greatest performances. I'll never forget that performance, and it was done in a take.
Wow.
4 cameras, but
Louise Lasser.
They went all the way through it. Louise Lasser as Mary Hartman. In one of the last episodes, she, having lost her mind, is institutionalized. And she's sitting in this institution with a lot of other strange people around her. She calls the nurse over, and she said, Did what happened? Did what I think happened happen?
Oh, don't tell me. Are we? Oh, we're not. Are we?
Yes, Mary, we are.
I can't believe it. All of us?
Everyone here, Mary, yes.
Including me now?
That's right.
I can't believe it. That I, Mary Hartman, am finally a member of the Nielsen family.
That's about the way this season ends.
That's fantastic.
And
You've been watching a conversation with Norman Lear on Story. On Story is part of a growing number of programs in Austin Film Festival's On Story project, including the On Story PBS series, now streaming online, the On Story radio program and podcast in collaboration with Public Radio International, and the On Story book series available on Amazon. To find out more about On Story and Austin Film Festival, visit onstory.tv or austinfilmfestival.com.